I'm Savannah Mizell, and under Dr. Gwendolyn Neal at Arkansas State University, I am partaking in the course Autism Spectrum Disorders. This is my final project where we were asked to identify a problem educating students with ASD and then kind of format a deeper understanding, a methodology that is research-based in order to answer that question. So to begin, I am a virtual teacher. I teach at Arkansas Connections Academy. Last year I taught 10th grade English. Again, that is virtually, so from my home I taught a large amount of 10th grade students English, and I love it. I have taught brick and mortar for 5 years previous to that, and I don't think that I'll ever go back because virtual instruction is it's close to my heart, and it's been awesome, the impact I've been able to make on students. That being said, when I started these online classes for A State University, it's been another breath of fresh air because of the freedom it allows me with my family and the ability to do my homework from home, and I've had so many great professors. So I have a lot of background in virtual education, and we were asked to identify a problem in educating students with ASD, and I realized that a problem of that is often, in brick and mortar settings, there's a lot of distraction and routine changes and juggling a lot of scenarios and schedules, and that can be hard to make leaps and bounds for students with ASD, especially when we're trying to teach social competence and using ABA. So I read the last 2 chapters of the textbook Autism Spectrum Disorder Foundations, Characteristics, and Effective Strategies that was assigned with the class, and chapter 10 was talking about assistive technologies, and I loved it because it's my daily life. It's what I love to do with my students. There's so many amazing apps out there that make learning so much more accessible to students with ASD, to all students, but specifically to students with ASD. And then chapter 11 talked about transition. And that's also close to my heart because I teach high school, secondary, the very end of high school, 11th grade, 12th grade English students. And next year I'm actually starting teaching special education in a high school setting as well. So transition to post-secondary settings, to adulthood, to autonomy, to independence is big for me, and I want my students to have as much independence as possible, whatever they can attain, and I think that we can attain a lot more using assistive technologies and using virtual instruction. So I began to do my research, and we were supposed to get specific, and I love that because I'm an English teacher, so I wanted to find a very specific topic, and what I finally came up with after researching was I wanted to talk about ABA therapies for secondary students using virtual instruction. So it's a mouthful, but ABA therapy is simply knowing what causes the student's behavior, what that behavior is doing, what the student is seeking, and what that result is going to be, and then the consequences, the positive, negative, and natural consequences, and then what those consequences cause for the next round of behavior, what antecedent it brings forward, and then what behavior results then. So once we understand that pattern with students, we can start to meet their needs in different ways and teach them to behave in more productive manners, to get work done better, to socialize in better ways. So ABA is a wonderful therapy, but there's different ways. It doesn't have to be a sticker chart. It doesn't have to be a reward system that leads to an ice cream cone, because those kind of things usually don't work for secondary students. So what does work for secondary students? In my case, virtual instruction is amazing for them. They have a lot more freedom of time. They have a lot more ability to decide what they're going to do, when they're going to do it. They get to choose the method of instruction. So there's a lot more freedom, and it can be individualized for students' needs. Once we're meeting those needs, the behaviors change and the results change, and we can see better consequences, better results. So that's kind of the context of the problem. And the problem is, how do we use ABA therapies in virtual settings? So I started searching, and people are already doing it. They're out there, and there's so much research behind it. There's a lot of small-scale studies and some large-scale studies, but I saw that the huge word that I kept seeing over and over was generalization. These students were able to practice these social competency skills that were so difficult when you have public scrutiny and people who don't understand the way you think in a brick and mortar setting, but they were able to practice these social skills in a structured non-peer or robotic peer setting with virtual instructors giving feedback, or sometimes not even a virtual instructor but a game interface. So it felt like they were playing a game, almost like Sims. That would be iSocial that I'm talking about. iSocial is an awesome app. It's a narrative-based app where students can gauge facial features and learn about other social competencies, and the game learns the student. What needs do they have? What are they understanding? What can I stop teaching them? What can I start teaching them? So they progress faster because their individualized needs are being met or being taught. So iSocial was an awesome thing, but even something as simple as sight words, the same concept rings true. Students who learned sight words with a virtual teacher and robotic peers were learning the sight words faster and generalizing them at 100%. And these were students with ASD. So virtual instruction is great for students with autism spectrum disorders. So I started to do more research, and I learned that it's relevant to my practice. I mean, this is what I do for a living. I'm a virtual teacher, and I have so many mediums at my hands, like iSocial, or like robotic peers, or like specifying instruction for each student based on what motivates them and what their behaviors are, and I can therefore make these students generalize the skills that they need to generalize sooner than others. So there's a lot of options for individualizing this type of instruction for students, and it's great for teachers like me, but it's not just for teachers who are virtual educators like me. This can be for the homeschooled student. This can be for the rural district student that doesn't have access to ABA therapies. This can be for a student who has leftover time in class and needs to work on social competencies according to his individualized education plan. So there's so many ways that teachers from all walks of education can fit this into the time spent educating a student and have outstanding results based on that. So in all, I want to say that this will change my instruction next year. Next year I plan on kind of researching iSocial a bit more, and I'm going to kind of write a proposition to my administration to see if they will pay for iSocial app for my students. We have bi-weekly tutoring, and in these bi-weekly tutoring sessions I'm going to try to use iSocial with my students and see what kind of progress we can make on social competencies. So this project has been awesome for me. I've learned a lot, and I've kind of had a fire lit under me, and I want to do more with it, and I'm grateful for the experience. I hope you enjoyed the paper that I wrote, because I really enjoyed writing it.